Sales doesn't need to be hard or overcomplicated. That's not my way of saying that sales is easy. Rather, I'm saying that you can have a successful career in sales if you develop a process and execute on it consistently. This channel is dedicated to what a sales process framework could look like and showcasing the different best and worst practices around the different steps of a sales process. The intention is to publish short weekly videos that are easily digestible with clear action items that you can begin doing today. Welcome to Sunday Sales Staples. Today's topic covers outbound prospecting. As I mentioned in another video on cold calls, prospecting is the first step in the sales process, which consists of identifying potential customers. The goal of prospecting is to develop a database of likely customers and then systematically communicating with them in the hopes of converting them from potential customers to current customers. And even though your marketing department is doing the best they can to build brand awareness and attract inbound leads, you can't always wait for the customers to come to you. You need to go to them. There are several different types of prospecting, and today we're going to cover the cold email. Cold emails are unsolicited emails that are sent to a receiver without prior contact. Ideally, the receivers of these emails are decision makers at companies who have a pain that needs to be addressed, and you're the one who can provide the solution. Cold emails are sent by hundreds of thousands of sales professionals each day because they want to capture the attention of their prospects. Many people in sales are doing the right things when it comes to these emails, and it shows in their pipeline generation. Others, however, continue to make the same mistakes and their performance struggles. It's important that we review the best and worst practices so that you can set yourself up for success in your role. But before we do, I want to share a story. Several years ago, I was working with an account executive at an energy delivery company that was targeting companies with fleets of vehicles. For the sake of keeping the individual anonymous, let's call him Steve. Steve's role was purely outbound sales, so he entered his prospects into a cadence and frequently communicated with them over cold calls and cold emails. When Steve originally crafted his emails, he created templates that were filled with data, information, and buzzwords that he thought would encourage the prospects to respond. The emails were lengthy, and Steve was sure that the prospects were going to find them useful. Unfortunately, Steve was wrong. His open rates, reply rates, and lead generation rates were all down, and management began to take notice. Rather than panic, Steve asked me to help. When I sat down with Steve, I immediately noticed a few things that were off: grammatical and punctuational errors, too many links to articles and case studies, and no clear call to action, just to name a few. We decided to scrap the original emails and start from scratch. After looking at the team's stats, we pulled in the top performers for some help. The top account executives gave us access to all of the different emails in their cadences, and we started to dig in. After reviewing these emails, Steve and I started to pick and choose the different messages, tactics, and subject lines that had the best performance data. Not every email was a winner, but we did notice some things that resonated with prospects, and we wanted to replicate it. When compared to the original emails, Steve's new emails were shorter, more concise, and had punchier subject lines. These new emails still showcased the value of the product and gave decision makers a reason to care, but it was much more well crafted. Within the first few weeks, we started to see results, and every metric with these new emails increased. Open rates, reply rates, qualified leads, pipeline generation, and annual recurring revenue all jumped for Steve because we started off with better messaging. It worked so well for Steve, in fact, that the team started to use these emails in the rest of their cadences. When done right, cold emails are a powerful tool at your disposal. When done wrong, the emails land flat and production decreases. This brings us to our do's and our don'ts. So over the last 10 years, I have analyzed hundreds of cold emails from sales professionals across a variety of industries. After looking into the performance data, I like to use the following best practices to increase an individual's or a team's success. The first one is tailoring your message. This means crafting different value propositions for different decision makers at your prospect companies. People in finance tend to be numbers driven, People in operations want to know how the product will affect their day to day, and people in HR will care about the candidate attraction and employee retention rates. While some departments may have cross-functional objectives, it's up to you to craft specific messaging that resonates with these different prospects. Similar to what I said in the cold calls video, which you can see by going to my YouTube channel, you need to do your homework on your prospects. What can you find out about them that you can include in your email? Did they attend your same university? Were they recently quoted in a published article? Did their company recently win some sort of award? Find out a unique fact about the individual or the company and insert it into that email. It will show your prospect that you took the time to research them rather than send canned emails with generic messaging. The next best practice is to keep the message concise. Don't drown your prospects in paragraphs of information. Rather, practice brevity. Sales professionals and leaders have their own thoughts on the perfect amount of words, sentences, and paragraphs for emails, and it may work for them, but my rule of thumb is no more than 7 sentences per email. It sounds like an arbitrary number, but in my experience, anything more than 7 sentences and your performance data slips. Next is putting your prospects into a cadence. If you've never heard of the term cadence before, it's when you frequently communicate with your prospects on a predetermined amount of time. It could be a weekly or twice a week contact, but anything less than once a week means your prospects will likely forget what you're selling them, and anything over twice a week means your prospects will likely get annoyed with you. You can break up your touch points between emails and cold calls. However, you should be keeping track of these cadences and their performance in an outbound prospecting tool like Outreach, SalesLoft, or Apollo. Next up is showcasing value. If you only list out the features and benefits of your product, then your prospect has to jump to the conclusion as to why they should care. Rather, you should include the value so that the prospect understands what they're going to get out of it and what the future state looks like for them once they implement their solution. Next, some subject lines. Something that is paramount to the success of your cold emails are subject lines. These need to capture the attention of your prospects as soon as it hits their inbox. Anything too lengthy and your prospects won't read it at all. Anything too short and your prospects will think it's useless. Finding the right subject lines may be tricky, and the same goes for the content of the email. So it's up to you and this next best practice to figure out the formula for success. A/B testing. A/B testing is the practice of putting together 2 different emails and testing their performance against one another. If you want to purely test the subject lines of 2 emails, then you should keep the email body of the content the same and see which of the 2 email subject lines gets the most open rates and reply rates. Outbound prospecting tools should allow you to run these A/B tests automatically and track the data so that your teams can improve, and by no means should you create email templates once and then leave them alone. After crafting the different messages, you should set a time limit to send the emails, collect and analyze the data, and then move forward in crafting a new message for future emails. Lastly, calls to action. This can be something as simple as, please contact me at the number provided below so that we can chat about your current process surrounding X, Y, or Z. Or schedule an introductory call with me by using my Calendly link below. Now, there are tools like Calendly, Chili Piper that should allow your prospects to automatically book these meetings, and I highly suggest that your organization invest in one of these. Now, you do need to give your prospects some sort of action item so that they are encouraged to get back to you. Be proactive with your sales process and don't rely on your prospects to drive the journey themselves. This brings us to the worst practices around cold emails. There are probably a load of worst practices. However, these are the main ones that I have seen throughout the years. The first one is templates. Sales professionals can get lazy sometimes and create one generic template for all of their prospects. Like we talked about in the best practices section, we need to craft tailored messages for the different personas. A boilerplate template lacks creativity and effort, and your prospects can see right through it. Similar to how you shouldn't cold call your prospects once or twice and then call it quits, you shouldn't send out 1 to 2 emails and then stop contacting them forever if they don't respond. Like I mentioned in my cold call video, it takes an average of 6 to 8 touch points to finally connect with the decision maker, so it's up to you to be persistent. Next is information overload. As a sales professional, working hard to generate qualified leads, of course, you know the extensive value props behind why your prospects should want your solution. However, you can't drown them in messaging. People are busier than ever with meetings, conference calls, emails, and day to day operations that they don't always have time to review every single email that comes through their inbox. If they decide to open your cold email and see that it's loaded with words and paragraphs, they're likely to delete it right off the bat. Remember to keep it short. Next are errors. When you keep your messaging brief, then people are more likely to read it and they're more likely to notice any grammatical or punctuational errors that may be in the email. Double and triple check your emails to make sure you come across as professional and worthwhile. And please, please, please remember to ensure that you're sending an email to the correct person. I have seen this multiple times where sales professionals will be trying to contact a decision maker named John, but they insert something like, "Hi, Dave," instead. Obviously, they're starting off on the wrong foot, and it's going to be an uphill battle to correct this mistake. Lastly, don't make it all about you and your company's product. Rather, you should showcase industry trends or pain points from other professionals at similar companies to make the information relevant to your prospect. If the prospect can't clearly see why they should care about your product, then they're not going to respond. That wraps up this week's quick overview of emails, and I appreciate you checking out the video. If you want to dig deeper into emails, I highly recommend checking out some articles that you can easily find on Google. Some people will have similar ideas to mine, and others will differ. At the end of the day, it's up to you to craft your own cold email process strategy, but I hope there were some key takeaways that you can begin using today. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, sales does not need to be hard. While sales is becoming vastly more complex with metrics and data, your process does not need to be so convoluted that it isn't easily replicated. Keep coming back to the channel to learn more about how to simplify your process and win new business. And feel free to reach out to me via email at sundaysalesstaples@gmail.com or reach out on Instagram at Sunday Sales Staples. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll catch you next week.